this episode of An Engineer's Journey, I interview Andrew Pisula. He studied mechanical engineering at the University of California, Santa Barbara, and now he's a principal consultant and owner of Vagabond Carving. Connor, and I'm
Andrew Pisula.
And what type of engineer are you, Andrew?
I'm a mechanical engineer, but honestly, I wasn't very good at that, so I quickly moved into being a process engineer, and I consult for all sorts of types of manufacturing organizations.
Okay, so I know you went to UCSB. What was your experiences like in UCSB, and what was the main struggles and strengths you had in college?
The first thing that jumps to mind is Santa Barbara is a university that's right on the ocean, which meant it was really hard to figure out how to be a good student and enjoy the lifestyle of living in Santa Barbara. It took me a little while. The biggest challenge really was the transition from school all the way to high school up until getting to college. Honestly, it was pretty easy, and I didn't have to study very much, which meant I had pretty bad studying skills. It was hard for me to learn at the complexity level that the first year of engineering school at UCSB, but all engineering schools are like. Mm-hmm. So I didn't do very well. It was really, really hard transition.
Nice. So you're saying the first years were more difficult than the last, even though you're not really in the full engineering program at that point, right? Or are you?
Sure. The undergrad portions are still considered full engineering classes. You get engineering credit for them. My experience has been, and for all the engineers that I've interviewed and hired throughout the years, it's usually been the same story. The first couple of years of engineering school are really, really hard. I think that nobody ever told me this outright, but it appears that most engineering schools are trying to weed out the amount of people that first choose that as a major so that those that graduate are really serious about this. My freshman class that had the biggest class that there could be in the largest auditorium, there were 600 mechanical engineers. I graduated with 60. The first couple of years are very, very, very hard.
Okay, so how did you go through that, and how did you balance your life with UCSB and everything that goes on there, and making it to be one of the 60 people that graduated?
Badly in the beginning, but what I ended up doing is I just started asking for help. I would go see all of my professors that I was really struggling, and they want you to succeed. I would explain like I'm trying and I'm just not getting it, and they would offer hours that they would help tutor me a little bit further. There are other assistants that are helping out throughout the class. I would go to every study group that I could on the days when I could keep it together that I wanted to try that hard. But truthfully, engineering school you just have to get through. In my experience in my career, I've only been asked once what my GPA was. It doesn't matter. You need to graduate. You need to work through how hard it is. When I have hired other engineers, I don't care what your degree, what your GPA was. I care that you got a degree because that tells me that you've learned a bunch of skills to work through how hard this is, and now have a toolbox of problem solving skills. That's what I think is the most important part of engineering. So I had to ask for a lot of help. I had to learn all those tools that I didn't have when I first arrived. High school didn't prepare me. My way of going through high school didn't prepare me for engineering school. So I had to ask for a lot of help.
Okay, so what was your process from end of college to where you are now? And did you start immediately as an engineering job, or did you go through a couple jobs to finally get to your job that you are now as a main engineer, or what was your process like?
Sure. I mean, I have always had jobs that had something to do with engineering. My first job was with a startup company that was making spectral imaging instrumentation. They were flying missions for NASA. It was really, really impressive. Every time I'd walk into a room, I knew I was the dumbest person in the room, which was pretty cool. I was just an engineer. I was making drawings. I was putting things together. I was working in a lab a lot. And then the next few jobs were variations of that, of trying to figure out what in engineering I liked and that I was really good at. Eventually, I started working for a large aerospace company, and I started with them in their process engineering group. I was responsible for all the engineering tools and how do you use them and helping people use them a little bit more efficiently. And that's what I've been doing variations of ever since.
So a day in your life is helping control the tools and the engineering processes that happen at your business.
My job now, I own my own consulting business and I meet with my customers. I get calls for, we got a problem. We don't know what's really going on, or we want to be more efficient in rolling out how we do this specific thing. I need my engineer to communicate better with the manufacturing floor somehow. And I go in and I work through a process of interviewing a lot of people of what it is that they need, what are the inputs and the outputs that are required. I create a bunch of documentation, and then I work with a bunch of software. There's a handful of tools that is used throughout engineering, and I help define how those tools can work to meet the process requirements.
So what was like the biggest problem you have faced throughout college and all your jobs and your current job, and how did you solve that problem?
The biggest problems have always been interpersonal. It's communication between people. Sometimes conversations get heated. Sometimes you're working with somebody that you don't like very much or that doesn't like you. Mm-hmm. It's always been figuring out how do you communicate so that you can be heard. It doesn't necessarily matter that I'm right in what I'm talking about if the person can't hear what I'm saying at all. So it's always been being able to manage personalities, both my own and people that I'm interacting with. And I'll be honest, in the beginning of my career, it took me a while to be good at that. That's not something that anybody teaches you in school, right?
Yeah.
You really learn that on the job of how do I succeed when I'm working with somebody that I really don't want to be working with. And those are skills you have to pick up to be a successful professional.
All right, so what is some advice you'd give to high school or college students that are thinking of becoming an engineer and are kind of struggling right now in school?
If you're struggling in school, even before that, if you're thinking about becoming an engineer, what I would recommend is think about why. What are the things about engineering that are interesting to you? And then try to pursue those parts of it. Mm-hmm. If you are going to be an engineer, just accept that the first few years of it are going to be hard and it probably won't be a lot of fun. You have to get through that. So you're making a commitment of, I'm just going to grind through this so that I get to something that I think is really neat. And then I would say, follow your passions. You'll find things in both engineering, in your hobbies and the like, that you'll start gravitating towards. Chase those things. If you find something within a job that you think is really interesting, do everything you can do to make that the largest part of what you're doing. If you do that, then all jobs become pretty cool. Mm-hmm. If you're doing it just because you want a paycheck, you're never going to be happy. It's always going to be frustrating. So find the thing you like. It's also okay if you don't know what that is. And if you don't know what that is for a while, it's okay. Part of the beauty of engineering is it's such a broad spectrum. And again, particularly for mechanical engineering, it's the broadest discipline that there is. Mm-hmm. If you don't like the thing you're doing right now, there's more things to try. So just keep looking for the right gig. That's what I did. I didn't like what I was doing at first. It took me a while to find the right thing. And then I did, and it became my career.
So how is your current job and engineering field changing with the future and advancements in computers and AI? And what's the trajectory of your job and future of your engineering?
Well, tool sets are always evolving, and AI is a huge part of every facet now. I mean, even if tools that I'm using now are saying it only because it sounds fancy, there's still elements where it is working. You can see that you type in a question and it's processing something behind the scenes, even if it's the most basic fundamental language AI. So a big part of being good at what I do is staying on top of the latest developments, what's cutting edge, what's practical. Mm-hmm. There are things that are, this seems amazing, but there's no way that these customers or this type of industry is going to use it in the next 3, 5, whatever years. But knowing about it and again, chasing something that I think is interesting means that I am more aware when it actually does come to somebody needs this and I got to figure out how we're going to incorporate it in what we're doing. Specifically though, AI, I've used it 5 times today, whether it be I'm using ChatGPT to do a bunch of research that I just don't want to click on every single website. I want to ask a couple of questions and it's going to spit out a lot of information. I still have to sort through all of that and use my experience and my intellect to understand, like, yeah, I don't believe that part, but this, wow, that's really helpful. And then there are other parts where I can just see, for example, common in manufacturing is you have to make a bunch of prototypes of something, right? Here's small iterations to try to find the right thing. Now there's a whole AI engine for most large CAD packages that you put in a couple of parameters and it spits out the craziest looking alien ideas that there's no way a person would come up with. And it shows you the strengths and weaknesses. So there's a lot of things like that that limit the amount of manpower necessary to do the grunt work, let's say. But then you have to have somebody who's got a lot of experience to like start choosing the right options and move through there. And I think there'll just be more and more of that. Think of it as like Alexa for engineering. That's becoming more and more prevalent.
So, what is one thing that most people that aren't into engineering and don't do too much deep dives into what engineers do, what is something that you think is super interesting that people don't know that much about engineering or about your job that you're in right now?
I'd say the thing that I've enjoyed the most about my career is being able to interact with companies that make the broadest spectrum of widgets, whether it be, you know, a tiny little button that goes on a phone, these microphones that we're using right now, to the complexity of a modern car with all its computers and hybrid battery motors and batteries. The processes that are needed to be able to create thousands, millions of these things are really pretty consistent. So it doesn't matter if you're making the tiniest widget to the biggest, most complex. There's a process that needs to be followed. And when you go walk onto a factory and you can see what it takes to make the same thing time and time and time again, I find that to be really fascinating. I think it's really cool.
So, I know engineering has been with you since college and you want to do it. So if you had to do something besides engineering in your life, what would you do in your life besides engineering?
Well, this is something that is near and dear to my heart and something that I would recommend for anyone in any phase of whether they're in high school, college, or in their career. When I was talking about chasing passions, you can have more than one career at the same time. You can chase things that you're really interested in. I've been in some form of engineering or not for a couple of decades now, but I'm also really passionate about art, and I have my own art business. We're actually in my studio that's
right now,
my home office, but also where I make all of my creations. So I'm always trying to find the best balance between the two. How do I do the things that I do in my day job that I really, really enjoy, provide for my family, provide for my home, and then also get to turn off when I'm done with that and come to my workbench and start making a bunch of things.
So we're in your shed right now where you make your woodworking and other projects. What is your favorite project that you built recently, and what is your favorite machine or tool you use often that you like?
Let's see. I have a laser engraver and cutter, which I use a lot, which I think is really cool. It makes simple things like this, where I can make a really complex cutout that I design on an engineering CAD package, and I can put it inside of something that's a little less structured. I also have a 3D printer, which I think is amazing. I make little robots, and I just made these robot arms with my 3D printer, and I think they're the coolest things ever. So yeah, I think both my creative side and my engineering side work well together because I'm constantly looking at what's the newest cool tool, and oh man, I got to get that. I don't know what I'm going to use it for, but it inevitably moves into the things that I make and enjoy playing around with.
So if people wanted to learn more about you and your woodworking, where would they go to find more about you?
Sweet plug, I like it. Well, you can just look for my name, Andrew Pisula, but I have a art business which is called Vagabond Carving, and it's all one word, and you can find me on Instagram under that handle as well as my website. But Thanks for letting me play.
All right. Thank you, Andrew.
If you like this episode of An Engineer's Journey, don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment if I should do season 2, and comment any additional questions you'd like me to ask. That'll be all. Bye-bye.